Good morning, school leaders. I'm excited to be here with you in Abuja. I am so excited because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, structures. How do we build successful schools? How? One major thing that we need to do in building successful schools is ensuring that we have the right structures in place. Just close your eyes for a minute and think about the chair you're sitting on. On that chair, it has how many legs? 3, 2, it has 4. 4 legs that support the 4 corners of that chair and give you balance where you are sitting. And that in itself is indicative of structure. If that chair didn't have the right structure in place, you'll probably be on the floor right now. So think about that chair. Think about the different types of chairs that you have. Some have a middle connection, right? They have that support system in the middle, a strong pillar, but then it fans out at the bottom. Whatever the chair, whatever your school is, there's a right structure for you. We just need to find it. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be looking at it and saying, what are the right structures for your school? But in finding the right structures, we're going to look at where you are. Where are you right now? That gives us a clue as to where you should be going. And so I want you to look at this screen. And if you have a preschool, a primary school, even a secondary school, at some point in your school, your students have planted something. Whatever it is that they've planted depends on what it was that they were doing. But in planting, what do? You give them paper cups, you give them cans, you give them anything. Some they bring it from home, and then they plant. They plant in sand, they plant in cotton wool. You put some in the sunlight. You take some away from sunlight. But whatever it is, what happens is eventually those seeds begin to sprout, regardless of where it is that they're planted. But the reality is they never sprout in the same way. Not all of those seeds will sprout at the same time. They all have different ways that they sprout. They all have different times that they sprout. And that's the same thing with your school. You are going to begin to build structures today. All right? You are going to begin to strengthen the structures you currently have. But the how of it is going to be dependent on where you are right now. So there's no need to fret. Don't be thinking about how quickly you want to move on and just get to work. Think about where you are right now. Why? When you are at the traffic light, everybody doesn't take off when the light turns green at the same time. We all take off differently. Some are a little slow and then you start to get some move very quickly. But all of that depends on the capacity of your car, what you're going to be doing, where you are going, how strong you are as a driver, and a couple of other things. But eventually we all, right? We all move from that green light and we move towards where we're going. And sometimes the reasons why we move so quickly depends on how quickly we want to get to where we're going, how important it is, how important where we're going is. And sometimes the skill, the audacity of you as a driver that just moves, Also, did you put your car in park? Did you put it on neutral? So all of those things also begin to determine how quickly you move from where you currently are. But it's okay where you are. It's fine. We just need to determine that level and then move on from there. We need to determine your current capacity and say to you, this is where you need to be to get to the structures that you want to build, to get to the school of your dreams. Okay, so take a deep breath and we're just going to go ahead. So how do you start? How? I know where to start, where I am, right? Because we agreed on that. Where I am right now is where we're going to start. But how do I start? And one thing I need you to think about is what should not be happening. When I got into education, I didn't really know a lot about education in 2009, but eventually I began to learn. But even before I learned, one thing that stood out for me was what should not be happening in the classrooms. And so knowing what should not be happening, it was easier to then begin to create what should be happening. What I need you to do at this time is to take out your pen and your writing material. And you better tell me that you have a pen and a writing material. I need you to take it out and I need you to write 3 major recurring problems you've been having in your school. 3. And please don't be vague. Don't say things like unhappy parents. Missing cutlery leading to unhappy parents. The problem is the missing cutlery. The cause of what that problem leads to is what? Unhappy parents. So you need to be that specific. Please start writing. Thank you. Have you written it down? Great. I needed you to write that down because I need you to understand exactly how structure would help you not wipe out, but minimize the recurrent problems that we have in our school. If my tires in my car are great, all of them, 4 of them are good, and then driving down the road, 1 of them gets a puncture, the 4 of them are no longer great. And so I would begin to notice that one side of my car is dragging. My car becomes a little wobbly, and that makes it an uncomfortable ride. Okay? And so you might be great up to a point. You might be great up to next year, 2 years from now. But if the structures are not in place, the right structures, the school begins to collapse in different areas, depending on where the problem is. And that's what structure is. Structure is a specific arrangement of things, of people, right? They are arranged towards meeting a particular goal. Right now, in that room where you are, you're sitting and facing a particular direction. Why? Because that is the structure that works. You are facing the screen that I'm teaching you on. Imagine that your feet were turned backwards and they were solid into the ground and you couldn't move it. You're going to be looking that way, and that's very uncomfortable. You don't want that to happen. And so the structures that you have in place in your school determine, 1, how far your school will go, 2, how effective your school is going to be. So structure really cannot be underestimated. We're going to look at 3 things. I call them my three, I'm not sure what name to call it right now, but there are 3 of the most important things for me when I think about structure. I think about people, things, and money. People, things, and money, they're so important in building structure. And all of these 3 key elements are tied together by leadership. If you have poor leadership, no matter how great your people, your money, and your things are, you will not be able to run the school well. And your things are usually your processes, okay? Your processes, your systems, those are the things. So what are those things that should be happening? Who is making them happen are the people. And sometimes you need a little bit of money to move them along, all right? So those 3 key elements are critical in building structure. You would notice the skeleton right there. That skeleton, we all have one, right? And that is our structure. That is the body structures, right? It's supported by the skeletons that we have on the inside. So regardless of what your body looks like, your skeleton carries it, right? Once your skeleton has a problem, then there is a huge problem to your functioning, all right? So that is how you need to begin to think about structure in your schools and how important it is. Without the right structures, you will not be able to hit your goals as a school, and you want to hit those goals. That's the reason why you started your school. To hit those goals, you need the right structure. You also need to be able to bring the people together to do what they need to be doing. There's no overlap in duties. Everybody is doing it properly, and your school will function smoothly and effectively. If your structures are not properly set, you are going to have those sort of problems, problems of friction in staff, problems of misaligned goals. So you have a problem with how the teachers are assessing the students, how the teachers are teaching, what the parents want to see in the students versus what you are doing in your school. You would have all those misalignment problems because structurally it's not working well. And so when you think about where to start, I just listed a couple of things. I talked about parents, right? I talked about our curriculum. I talked about your staffing. All of those things fall under 2 main things. The 2 main structures that you have in your school, any school, my school, your school, our school. And the 2 main structures are your academic structure and your administrative structure. Academic and administrative. And these 2 structures are what you put everything else under. So unhappy parents goes under what? Both academic and administrative. So you need to say, why are they unhappy? What caused the unhappiness? And how did they communicate it? And what do we need to do, right? So those tie in together. So even though you have academic and administrative, they need to be aligned to have a strong school system. And so these questions that I have here would help you. All right. Remember, I talked about things and I talked about people. I also talked about money. So the money aspect is not here, but just thinking about it and knowing that to get some things done, you need money. We're kind of pulling the money in there. And so who does what? Right? You need to ask that question when you begin to build structure in your school. Who is doing what in your school? Communication, for example. What are your communication tools? who is using them. So the things are what your communication tools. The who is the people who is using them. And then of course you need to pay for some of these tools. Some of them are free, but the device where you're going to use those tools needs to be paid for, right? So that is how you tie in your who, your what, and your money. And so all of those things are really, really important. Your who is your people, your what are the things, and then the money, of course, is the money, right? So it's really important to begin to ask yourself these 4 questions here. Who is doing what? What do they do? So it's not just about who is doing, what are they doing exactly? All right, and that feeds into your human resource management, your talent management, all right? And then what should they be doing? That's quality control, and that's extremely important. And quality control is a strong system that you need to have running in your school. How do we need to close the gaps between what they're doing and what they should be doing? How far away are we? All right, and that takes you to your SWOT analysis, your school audit systems. A couple of my friends are there, and they are going to run you through a lot of the systems. There's Rhoda, there's Carol, there's Mr. Rotimi, and there's Amobola. You know, there's so many people. There's Mr. Olumide. They're going to run you through what you should be doing and how you should be doing these things in your school. What structures do you have? Before you think about the structures that you have, I really, really need you to be able to articulate these 3. What is your why? Why did you start that school? What is your vision? Your vision is the future, is the picture of the future that you have in front of you. And so your structures help you to walk towards that vision. So what is your why? Why did you start it? What is the vision that your why paints? It's important. And then what are your core values? Your core values are almost like the fuel that keeps it running, that ties it all together and makes sure that you have a really strong system. Why do you need to be able to answer these 3 questions? It's probably what you're asking right now. You need to be able to answer those questions because of these 7 systems that you have in place. There's 7, but in reality, there are 8. I forgot to add the 8th one, which is your IT systems. Technology ties all of this together. Let me explain. Your client's attraction and retention processes is hinged upon what? Your admission structure, right? So when you think about your admission structure, you need to be able to what? Attract the right parents to your school. And that means what? You have created a profile for those parents. You're going to use technology to do that, right? And that's how technology ties in everything. And when you begin to say, oh, we want parents who go to work Monday to Fridays, or to school, depending on what it is that they're doing, what area they are in their lives. And so we need to drop off their children at about 6:30 because we have MBK. And so that means that what you're targeting, your message, right, which is your attraction methodology, is targeting those sort of parents. And so it's important that you look at all of this, but guess what? You must look at them in tandem with your why, your vision, and yes, your core values. So before you move on forward, and I do have people who are right there on ground with you, who are going to create, to help you, support you as you do a SWOT analysis. You need to audit your school. Where am I currently? Do I have a client attraction process? What is my structure around admissions? What is my structure around financial management? What is my structure around academics? Who is doing what in the classrooms? What are they meant to be doing? What sort of curriculum integrations do I have? Those are the kind of questions that you need to begin to ask. And we are there to support you. Okay? Do a SWOT. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you what sort of SWOT you need to do. This particular slide shows you what a SWOT analysis is. What are your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and the threats that you have within your organization? You need to be able to answer those questions. If you don't, then you will have a problem, right? Because if you don't know your strengths, then what do you build up? You need to capitalize on the strengths that you have as a school. If you're not sure about your weaknesses, you're still going to have the same problem, right? Because guess what? You cannot shore them up with your strengths. What are the opportunities and threats that exist outside of your organization, but your organization needs to be responsive, which is why building structure helps you with your goals, helps you meet those goals, aligns your school in such a place, to be in such a place that regardless of what happens, futuristically speaking, you are strong enough to make it work. I need you to project into this future. All right, think about the future. Think about the importance of technology in your future. To have a dynamic structure means that you are not just meeting the needs of today. You're meeting the needs of tomorrow, next tomorrow, and every single day. What does the data say? Those 3 that you wrote initially, those 3 are critical because those become the 3 top structures that are wobbly in your school. And once you build on those 3, you create already a stronger school structure. It's been a pleasure being with you, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for writing those out. Thank you for beginning to look a little more deeper into what structures you need to have in your school. My name is Okenfo Ajayi. It's always a pleasure to work with you. If you need more support, all you need to do is hit me up, and I'll be more than happy to support you to build the structures that you need to have in your school by analyzing what you currently have. Take care and have a good day.